What if I told you that the most shocking moment at the Hollywood Christmas Parade 2025 wasn't a performance, wasn't a float, and wasn't even a speech, but a silence? A silence so sharp, so precise, so intentionally placed that it cut deeper than any public feud, any tabloid headline, or any scripted Hollywood rivalry. Because sometimes the biggest message is delivered without a single word. And on that blisteringly bright December evening, that message came from Luke Wilson, aimed directly at Meghan Markle. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Imagine it, a street lined with tens of thousands of people, families cheering, spotlights sweeping across Hollywood Boulevard, floats rolling in timed perfection. And right in the center of this spectacle, right where every camera was pointed, stood the Grand Marshal himself, Luke Wilson. Calm, collected, confident. A man known for being level-headed, charming, polite to a fault. A man who rarely makes waves. Which made what happened next all the more explosive. Because when Meghan Markle's name came up, whether whispered by fans, muttered by photographers, or mentioned by excitable parade commentators, Luke didn't flinch. He didn't smile. He didn't greet her. He didn't look in her direction. He didn't acknowledge her existence. It wasn't a miscommunication. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a deliberate line drawn in real time. And the internet noticed. In the span of minutes, clips went viral. Slow-motion edits, zoom-ins, lip-reading attempts, shocked reactions, frame-by-frame analysis. The moment was everywhere. The caption under nearly every share said the same thing. Luke Wilson just ended Meghan Markle without saying a word. But was it really that simple? Or was this the volcano that had been rumbling beneath Hollywood's surface for years, finally erupting on a night meant for sparkles, candy canes, and innocent holiday cheer? Because behind the glitz and glam of the parade is a world most people never see. A world of politics. A world of power. A world where invitations are currency, appearances are strategy, and silence is a weapon. And on this particular night, December 1st, 2025, Meghan Markle walked straight into a battlefield she didn't even know she was on. Let's rewind. The Hollywood Christmas Parade isn't just another event on the calendar. It's a legacy institution, nearly a century old, a beloved tradition, a moment where Hollywood shows its face not as the ultra-polished industry giant we see at award shows, but as a community, a family-friendly festival, a feel-good celebration drenched in nostalgia. Being named Grand Marshal is an honor reserved for those Hollywood genuinely respects. And this year, Hollywood chose Luke Wilson. Not Meghan Markle, not Prince Harry, not the Sussex brand, not the Netflix starlet reinventing herself. Luke Wilson. And that decision, simple as it seemed, was the first blow. Because Meghan Markle expected to be invited. In fact, she expected to be front and center. She expected the cameras to turn toward her, the whispers to spread, the photographers to scramble. She expected, at the very least, that the event organizers would acknowledge her influence. But instead, she received nothing. No invitation, no mention, no cameo slot, no VIP seating, nothing. For someone who once walked into rooms expecting the spotlight to follow her, the absence of any recognition was deafening. And when she decided to appear near the parade route anyway, because when Meghan wants visibility, she makes sure she gets it, it only added fuel to the fire. But here's the twist. Luke Wilson didn't just ignore her because she wasn't part of the official parade program. According to multiple insiders, there was something deeper happening, something simmering beneath the surface, something personal, something political, something rooted in Hollywood's changing tolerance for drama, or something that happened behind closed doors long before the parade began. Think about this. Luke Wilson isn't known for scandals. He isn't known for feuds. He doesn't play the PR game. He doesn't jump into Hollywood drama. He avoids conflict. He stays neutral. He's the guy who laughs things off. The guy who keeps peace, stays humble, keeps quiet. So for Luke Wilson of all people to suddenly become the man who snubbed Meghan Markle, that means something. You don't get a moment like that without a backstory. You don't get an icicle-cold silence without weeks, maybe months, of behind-the-scenes tension. You don't get a public non-acknowledgement without an unseen build-up that forced Luke into a position he normally avoids. And that's where the Real story begins. Because Hollywood insiders claim Meghan tried, repeatedly, to wedge herself into the parade narrative, whether through her PR team, through intermediaries, or through unofficial channels. She wanted proximity to the event, proximity to Luke, proximity to the cameras, proximity to the kind of public goodwill events like this automatically generate. But the parade organizers said no. Not politely, not quietly, not diplomatically, firmly, repeatedly, and without negotiation. Why? According to one insider, the organizers didn't want the parade to become a PR battleground. They didn't want headlines overshadowing the purpose of the event. They didn't want controversy. They didn't want drama. And yes, they didn't want Meghan Markle. But Meghan Markle didn't take that rejection lightly. She didn't retreat into the background. She didn't disappear into the privacy of Montecito. She didn't let the parade go on without her presence being felt. Instead, she doubled down. She made sure she was seen. She made sure she was noticed. She made sure she was in the vicinity of the event, even if she wasn't officially part of it. Which means Luke Wilson wasn't just ignoring her existence. He was refusing to play into her narrative. That refusal, that silent rejection, that cool professionalism, that was the real sting. Because here's the thing, Meghan Markle thrives on reaction. Whether positive or negative, she counts on people responding, defending, criticizing, discussing, amplifying. But what happens when someone doesn't react at all? What happens when a Hollywood veteran refuses to give her anything? No look, no nod, no acknowledgement. It creates a vacuum, and vacuums fill fast. Fans filled it with speculation. Critics filled it with mockery. Analysts filled it with commentary. And Meghan's own team filled it with frantic damage control. Because the truth is, celebrities rarely fear hatred. What they fear is irrelevance. And for one brutal, merciless moment on Hollywood Boulevard, Meghan Markle wasn't controversial. She was irrelevant. But the introduction doesn't end here. Because what came after the snub, what happened in the minutes, hours, and days that followed, revealed something far more explosive than a simple non-greeting. Something that exposes the cracks in Meghan's public image. Something that uncovers the real reason Hollywood is pulling away. Something that shows why the mask slipped, and why this parade became the moment that changed everything. Because while Luke Wilson's silence made headlines, it was what happened next that made history. Introduction complete. Say go when you want chapter 1. You said. Each time I type go, continue by generating the next section of the script based on the outline. Rules for continuation. Pick up directly from the last cliffhanger. Length, at least 2,000 words. Retention style. Begin with a mini hook or provocative question. Weave in emotional beats, contradictions, and surprising twists. Use short, punchy lines for tension, longer ones for storytelling. Ask direct questions to the audience. What if the most humiliating moment of your year happened in front of tens of thousands of people and millions more watching online, and the person who delivered that humiliation didn't even speak? What if the blow came not from words, not from shade, not from confrontation, but from a calculated, deliberate, razor-sharp silence? Because that's exactly where we pick up. Right after the cliffhanger from the introduction, Luke Wilson's silence wasn't just a silence. It was a statement. A megaphone disguised as calm restraint. A decision that echoed louder than any microphone on Hollywood Boulevard. And the question that everybody began asking in that moment, whether they were standing on the sidewalk, scrolling through TikTok, refreshing Twitter, or dissecting Instagram clips, was simple. Why? Why would Luke Wilson, of all people, go out of his way to avoid acknowledging Meghan Markle? Let's slow that moment down. Let's rewind the tape. Let's zoom in, frame by frame. Because the snub wasn't an accident. It was the moment everything changed. And you're about to see exactly why. Picture the scene. The Hollywood Christmas Parade, 2025. The streets glowing with red and green. Floats glittering with lights. Marching bands warming up with sharp brass notes. Crowds leaning over barriers, cameras raised, kids squealing at the giant balloons drifting overhead. A perfect blend of nostalgia and spectacle. Then the Grand Marshal appears, Luke Wilson, standing tall on his float, waving in that understated, humble way that makes him so likable. No theatrics, no ego, no forced showmanship. Just a man doing the job with genuine warmth. The audience loves it. Hollywood loves it. Even the cynical bloggers love it. And then, the camera pans. Because there, on the sidewalk, not too close, not too far, strategically positioned in that accidentally on purpose way, stood Meghan Markle. Her team knew what they were doing. Her stance was rehearsed. Her angle to the float was perfect. Her makeup and hair were flawless. Her coat tailored within an inch of its life. Her smile ready for whatever narrative the night would hand her. She wanted to be seen. She expected Luke to glance her way, to wave, to nod in acknowledgement, to offer a small moment she could spin into a headline. Meghan Markle shares warm exchange with Grand Marshal Luke Wilson. Except that didn't happen. Luke Wilson's eyes scanned the crowd. Wave, wave, smile, nod at a child holding a sign, wave to a veteran on the corner, smile at the camera crane swinging above. Then, he reached the part of the route where Meghan stood. And he didn't break his pattern. He didn't pause. He didn't lean forward. He didn't adjust his wave. He didn't offer a glance. He looked directly over her, as if she wasn't there, as if she were invisible, as if she were just another face in the swarm of thousands. But she wasn't, and she knew it. Her team knew it. The parade organizers knew it. And the internet definitely noticed it. Within seconds, literally seconds, clips exploded across social media. People posted, "Whoa, did Luke Wilson just ignore Meghan Markle? Bro didn't even blink in her direction." That silence was loud. He said, "Not today, Meghan." You can feel the tension through the screen. But the wild part? Luke's face stayed calm, unbothered, neutral, professional. He didn't look angry. He didn't look bitter. He didn't look smug. He simply pretended she wasn't there. And that made it infinitely worse. Because here's the truth. If he had acknowledged her coldly, that would have been a story. If he had frowned, it would have fueled speculation. If he had waved reluctantly, people would have called it awkward. If he had given a half smile, the tabloids would have run with "Luke Wilson extends olive branch to Meghan Markle." But silence. Silence is different. Silence is powerful. Silence is intentional. Silence is a message. And Meghan Markle, who has built her entire public persona on attention, visibility, relatability, and curated narrative, knows exactly how damaging silence can be. But before we get into her reaction, let's rewind even further. Because this wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment snub. This wasn't Luke acting out of nowhere. This wasn't a man suddenly turning into a celebrity savage. There was context, layers, a build-up, and most importantly, a reason. But the audience watching in real time didn't know any of that yet. All they knew was that Meghan Markle just got publicly erased by Luke Wilson. And nothing spreads faster through Hollywood than a juicy humiliation. You have to understand the analogy here. Hollywood is a chessboard, not a circus. Every move is strategic. Every interaction is coded. Every silence is a statement. Every acknowledgement is a reward. And this was Luke Wilson essentially telling the world, this isn't your stage. This isn't your moment. This isn't your spotlight. Not here. Not today. But what makes this moment truly jaw-dropping is how Meghan reacted. Because she didn't flinch. Not outwardly. Her smile stayed locked in place. Her posture never dropped. Her chin didn't dip. Her hands didn't fidget. She played it cool. Played it calm. Played it unfazed. But the cameras caught something her PR team couldn't hide. Something subtle, something fleeting, something impossible to miss once you notice it. A flicker. Just one. A flicker in the eyes. The nanosecond where confidence turned into shock. Where expectation turned into confusion. Where calculation turned into panic. Where she realized Luke wasn't playing the game. And that flicker, just that fraction of a second, became the freeze-frame moment spread around the internet. People zoomed in. People replayed it. People slowed it down to quarter speed. People made memes. People wrote breakdown threads. People posted side-by-side comparisons with other celebrity snubs. It became the defining image of the night. But the real story wasn't the flicker. The real story was the ripple effect. Because Meghan Markle expected something from Hollywood that night. Something she believed she still possessed. Something she thought she was owed. Recognition. But Luke Wilson showed the world the opposite. She didn't have it. She wasn't owed it. And Hollywood wasn't giving it. Which leads us into the deeper layers of this moment. The unspoken politics behind the parade, the decisions made by the organizing committee, the whispers among Hollywood executives, and the celebrity circles Meghan has been quietly shut out from. Because the snub was just the surface. The real drama was happening behind the scenes. The real rejection happened long before parade day, long before Luke stepped onto his float, long before Meghan appeared along the route. This moment wasn't the beginning. It was the result, the aftermath, the consequence. And if you think this was bad, wait until you hear what the organizers said about Meghan behind closed doors. Wait until you hear why Luke refused to interact with her. Wait until you hear how Meghan's PR team scrambled and panicked the moment they realized Luke wasn't giving them anything to work with. Because the snub wasn't the whole story. It was the first crack. The first domino. The first public glimpse of something Hollywood insiders had known for months. Something Meghan didn't want the world to see. Something that was about to come crashing into the open. And believe it or not, Luke Wilson's silence was only the beginning. What happened next didn't just expose Meghan's insecurity. It exposed her entire Hollywood strategy. But to understand the real sting of Luke's refusal to acknowledge her, you have to understand what Meghan expected that night. What she prepared for, what she thought her role would be, what she believed the public, and Luke, would give her automatically. Because once you see the expectations she walked in with, Luke's silence becomes 10 times more brutal. What if everything you planned, every angle, every camera moment, every narrative you thought you were about to reclaim, collapsed in a single instant? What if the story you believed you were walking into turned into the exact opposite the moment reality intervened? Because that is precisely where Meghan Markle's night began to unravel. And it started long before Luke Wilson ever stepped onto that float. That let's pick up right where the last chapter left off. With the world staring at Meghan Markle's flicker, the millisecond where confidence cracked. That tiny fracture wasn't just humiliation. It was the collapse of a plan she quietly, subtly, but very intentionally constructed. And it's time to expose that plan. Ask yourself, why would Meghan Markle, a woman who preaches privacy, a woman who claims to rise above the noise, be standing anywhere near the 93rd annual Hollywood Christmas parade without an invitation, without a role, without a place in the event? Why would she be there? Because she expected the night to go very differently. Shockingly differently. Let's break it down step by meticulous step. In the days leading up to the parade, Meghan was operating under a familiar belief. A belief she has carried since her first days in Hollywood, through her royal era, and into her post-royal reinvention phase. Visibility equals relevance. Relevance equals power. Power equals narrative control. And when Meghan senses a moment where the spotlight might touch her, even briefly, she positions herself to make the most of it. The 2025 Hollywood Christmas Parade was one of those moments. It wasn't just a parade. It was a return, a reminder, a chance, a platform, a stage she believed was waiting for her. From her perspective, the timing was perfect. Holiday season, Hollywood tradition, millions watching, dozens of press outlets live streaming, A-list names sprinkled across floats and commentary booths. A warm, family-friendly event that could feed into the narrative she's been pushing. The rebrand as wholesome, relatable, motherly, humanitarian, warm-hearted Meghan. The version she wants the public to embrace. But beneath that sugary, polished exterior lies a truth her team knows all too well. Every public appearance must serve the brand. Every outing must be leveraged. Every moment must reinforce the Meghan story. So let's talk about the strategy. Because yes, there was a strategy. Meghan has been desperate for what PR agencies call non-controversial visibility. Harmless, clean, warm-hearted public moments that soften her image. The parade? Perfect. Non-political, non-royal, non-divisive, publicly adored, celebrity-packed without being competitive. Her team had been angling for a moment exactly like this. If she couldn't appear on the float, if she couldn't co-host, if she couldn't be featured, if she couldn't be spotlighted at the very least, she could make a supportive public appearance, something her PR team could spin into headlines. Meghan Markle brings holiday cheer to Hollywood Parade. Meghan Markle shines unexpectedly at annual Christmas event. Crowd delighted as Meghan Markle greets fans at Hollywood Parade. All they needed was a friendly nod, a wave, or a glance from Luke Wilson. Just one clean clip, just one frame, just one interaction. That was the plan. Step 2. The image preparation. Her wardrobe wasn't casual. Her styling wasn't spontaneous. Her positioning wasn't random. You don't step out at a public event in a perfectly tailored winter coat, flawless soft glam makeup, and a curated seasonal palette without intention. Her coat? Warm beige, a classic Meghan choice, signaling approachable elegance. Her hair? Loose waves, effortless but maintained. Her accessories? Minimalist, calculated simplicity. Her team knew this look photographs beautifully in December lighting. This wasn't Meghan being out and about. This was a crafted appearance. Step 3. The positioning. Now here's where the strategy becomes undeniable. Meghan wasn't standing randomly along the route. She wasn't in a crowd pocket with no cameras. She wasn't in a shadowed corner. She was placed precisely where camera cranes sweep, where the Grand Marshal's float slows down, where celebrity commentators glance to read crowd reactions, where paparazzi cluster for the best angles. She didn't position herself like a spectator. She positioned herself like someone expecting acknowledgement, someone expecting to be seen, someone expecting to be validated, someone expecting a moment. And that's exactly the energy she radiated, even though she wasn't invited, even though she wasn't part of the parade, even though the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce had made their stance painfully clear, they didn't want her involved. But Meghan wasn't hearing the word no, because in her mind, no wasn't a barrier. It was an obstacle to scheme around. Step 4. The calculation behind Luke Wilson. Let's pause here. Why Luke Wilson? Why would Meghan care so much about being acknowledged by him? Simple. Luke Wilson, Grand Marshal, respected, beloved, neutral, is the type of Hollywood figure whose approval carries weight. A seal of legitimacy, a nod from the industry, a sign she was welcome back, a symbolic acceptance. He's not petty. He's not dramatic. He's not easily manipulated. He's not the type to get dragged into PR games, which is precisely why being acknowledged by him would have been powerful. If he waved at her, the internet would have eaten it up. If he smiled at her, the tabloids would have spun it as mutual respect. If he just said hello, her PR team would have had enough material to push a Hollywood reconnection narrative for weeks. Meghan wasn't chasing attention. She was chasing legitimacy. Luke was the perfect tool for that. But Luke wasn't playing the game, and she never saw it coming. Step 5. The moment she believed would happen. Here's what Meghan's team expected. Luke sees her. Luke recognizes her. Luke waves, politely, kindly, generically. She waves back. Smile. Camera shutter clicks. PR gold. They push. Luke Wilson greets Meghan Markle during parade appearance. Even a 3-second exchange would have been spun into. Hollywood extends warm welcome to Meghan. This was the narrative she came to get. This was the moment she believed she would control. This was the expectation that made her step out onto that boulevard with confidence. But she didn't get it. Instead, she got the opposite. She got erased. Step 6. The emotional undertone. Let's be honest. Meghan Markle is not a woman who handles rejection quietly. When she expects a door to open and it slams in her face, the reaction is swift. You've seen it. We've all seen it. Interviews, documentaries, op-eds, leaks, anonymous sources, victim-driven narratives, emotional reframing, strategic tears. But this humiliation didn't happen behind palace walls. It didn't happen in private meetings. It didn't happen across the pond. It didn't happen in a controlled interview. It happened live, in public, in front of families, children, fans, critics, celebrities, and cameras. So when Luke Wilson breezed by her, effortlessly, silently, unbothered, the emotional hit was seismic. This wasn't a royal snub. This wasn't a political snub. This wasn't a media snub. This was a Hollywood snub. Her own industry, her birthplace, her supposed home turf, rejecting her. Do you understand the sting? Do you see the irony? The woman who left Hollywood because it wasn't giving her enough visibility returned years later expecting power, but found something she never anticipated. Hollywood moved on without her and didn't miss her. Step 7. The immediate aftermath. Here's what the cameras didn't catch. The second Luke passed, the moment he moved out of sight, Meghan broke posture for the first time all night. Her shoulders dipped. Her smile tightened. Her hands adjusted the cuff of her coat, an anxious tell she's displayed in countless appearances. Her team stepped in closer, whispering, regrouping, recalculating. Because the plan collapsed in real time. There was no clip to harvest, no interaction to spin, no acknowledgement to inflate. Worse, there was evidence of rejection. And social media was already exploding. Her PR team wasn't just unprepared. They were blindsided. Because everything Meghan expected evaporated. And the humiliation wasn't over. Not even close. Because while she was reeling from Luke's refusal to see her, another problem was quietly forming behind the scenes. A problem that would strike even harder. A problem that would go viral. A problem that insiders claim Meghan's team tried desperately to shut down. A problem that exposed what Hollywood really thinks of Meghan Markle. And that problem begins with what parade organizers said about her before the night even began. You think Luke's silence was bad? Wait until you hear the conversations that happened in the planning room. That's where the real truth comes out. What if the person who delivers your biggest public humiliation isn't your enemy, but someone who was never supposed to be involved in your story at all? What if the person who shuts you out isn't a rival, not a critic, not a royal, not a pundit, but a man known for being so laid back, so unproblematic, so apolitical that Hollywood jokes he's incapable of drama? Because that's who Luke Wilson is. Or at least, that's who he used to be. Until Meghan Markle tried to use him. Until the Hollywood Christmas Parade 2025 placed him squarely in Meghan's orbit. Until he became the unlikely gatekeeper between Meghan Markle and the Hollywood acceptance she's been chasing since her return from Montecito exile. This is where everything shifts. Because in the last chapter, we explored what Meghan expected. Now we dive into why Luke, of all people, refused to give her what she wanted. Let's begin with a question that nobody saw coming. Why was Luke Wilson the one who drew the line? Mini hook. What if the man Meghan thought she could use didn't just refuse? He rejected the entire strategy behind her appearance. Because that's exactly what happened. It starts with understanding Luke himself. Luke Wilson is not a scandal chaser. He's not a red carpet provocateur. He's not a celebrity who weaponizes attention. He's not someone who thrives on controversy. He's the opposite. He's the calm in the storm. The nice guy archetype. The quietly respected Hollywood figure everyone trusts. The actor who never goes out of his way to be cruel or rude. So when someone like Luke Wilson refuses to acknowledge you, Hollywood pays attention. Because Luke doesn't do petty. He only does boundaries. But why would a man with no history of feuds choose this moment to draw one? Why choose Meghan Markle? Why choose this parade? Why take a stance at all? To answer that, we have to go back months. Long before the parade, long before the snub, long before Meghan appeared along the route with a camera-ready smile. Because the truth is this. Meghan had been trying to use Luke Wilson for months. And Luke knew it. Let's rewind. In mid-2025, Meghan embarked on what insiders called her Hollywood reintegration campaign. She wanted to re-enter Hollywood social circles, rebuild her credibility, reconnect with industry figures, recapture the cultural relevance she had lost, and most importantly, be seen as Hollywood approved again. Her team knew she needed it. Her PR advisors begged her to pursue it. Her brand partners demanded it. But the problem? Hollywood wasn't interested. Not because of the scandals. Not because of the royal drama. Not because of the interviews. Not because of the Oprah fallout, Spotify meltdown, Netflix fatigue, or Archetypes fiasco. Hollywood wasn't interested because Meghan was unpredictable. And unpredictability is poison to a stable industry. Enter Luke Wilson. Luke was approached, quietly, indirectly, subtly, by people connected to Meghan's PR orbit earlier that year. Not for anything outrageous. Not for anything official. Not for anything binding. Just for proximity. They wanted Luke to appear at the same events. Be photographed in casual proximity. Mention Meghan positively in interviews. React politely if they cross paths. Provide a bridge between Meghan and Hollywood's traditional circles. Why Luke? Because he symbolizes authenticity. Because he's universally liked. Because he has no enemies. Because his approval carries moral weight. Because he gives legitimacy simply by standing next to someone. And because this is the part Meghan's team counted on, Luke is polite, famous for being polite. Hollywood's nice guy. The kind of man who never rejects a photo, never refuses a greeting, never becomes the center of a feud. But this time, Luke refused. Multiple times. Quietly, politely, firmly. He didn't want involvement. He didn't want entanglement. He didn't want to be accidentally pulled into the Meghan Markle media storm. He told associates, "I don't want any drama. I'm staying away from that. It's not my thing." But Meghan's team didn't listen. They tried again, and again, and again, still subtle, but persistent, because they believed they could wear him down. They believed he would eventually smile for a camera, offer a friendly wave, give them a moment they could spin. But Luke wasn't budging. And as the months passed, Hollywood insiders began whispering one crucial thing. Luke Wilson is done with the Meghan narrative. Not hostile, not bitter, not angry, just done. And that is far more devastating. Because hostility can be spun as jealousy or rivalry. But disinterest? Disinterest is fatal. Now, let's talk about the parade itself. When Luke accepted the role of Grand Marshal, he was briefed on everything. Schedules, routes, media guidelines, security advisories, celebrity attendee lists. And yes, he was warned about Meghan Markle's team. Warned that they might attempt to create a moment. Warned they might position her along the route. Warned they might try to engineer a photo op. Warned they might attempt to insert her into the broadcast narrative. Luke's response: a sigh, a shake of the head, and a simple sentence. Let's not make this complicated. But the organizers clarified. We won't involve her. At all. That sentence will matter later. Because it's the same sentence overheard backstage. The one that spreads like wildfire in Chapter 10. But for now, focus on Luke. He knew Meghan might appear. He knew her team was pushing for it. He knew his interaction could be used. He knew a wave could become a headline. He knew a smile could become a narrative. He knew a glance could become a week-long PR cycle. He knew exactly what was at stake. So he made a decision. A clean one. A firm one. A boundary-setting one. No engagement. Not a wave. Not a nod. Not a glance. Not even a flicker. He would treat her the same way he treated every other person on the sidewalk. With neutrality. But here's the twist. That neutrality felt like hostility. Not because Luke intended it, but because Meghan expected something else. And expectation turns neutrality into rejection. Consider the irony. Meghan has always believed she has star power. Always believed she can command attention. Always believed she can walk into any event and shift the atmosphere. She believed Luke would fall in line. She believed Hollywood would rally. She believed the public would be on her side. But Luke Wilson, a man famous for kindness, made it brutally clear. He wanted nothing to do with her. And that was the moment Hollywood collectively nodded. Because when the nicest guy in the room avoids you, people assume he has a reason. And Hollywood is a town built on assumption. But here's where the emotional beat hits even harder. Luke's snub wasn't only personal. It wasn't only political. It wasn't just about PR strategy. It was symbolic. Hollywood has its own silent language. Who you acknowledge reveals status. Who you ignore reveals truth. And Luke revealed something Meghan didn't want to face. She is no longer part of the club. She is no longer inside the circle. She is no longer seen as safe, reliable, or beneficial. She is a liability, not an asset. A storm cloud, not a sunshine cameo. A headline generator, but the wrong kind. And Luke refusing to acknowledge her was Hollywood's way of saying, "We agree." But before you think this is the peak of the drama, stop. Because Luke's silence wasn't the end. It was the spark that ignited the real revelation that shaped the rest of the night. What happened behind closed doors? What organizers were saying? What other celebrities knew? What even Meghan's team didn't expect? Because the Hollywood Christmas parade didn't just expose Meghan's lack of relevance. It exposed the political power structure behind the scenes. It exposed the decision to keep her out. It exposed the truth Hollywood has been whispering for months. And that truth takes center stage in Chapter 4. Because what Meghan thought was a simple parade was actually a political minefield she walked into blind. And the real reason she wasn't invited? It wasn't personal. It was strategic. And it's far more brutal than anyone realizes. What if the parade you think is all glitter, candy canes, and holiday cheer is actually a battlefield? What if every float, every camera angle, every celebrity placement is dictated not by tradition, but by politics, influence, and power plays that the public never sees. Welcome to Hollywood Christmas Parade 2025, and the truth behind Meghan Markle's exclusion. Right after Luke Wilson's deliberate silence, most viewers assumed the story was simple. A celebrity snub. But the reality is far more complex. Because behind the smiles, lights, and marching bands, there is a network of backstage maneuvering, private agendas, and unspoken rules, and Meghan Markle ran headfirst into all of it. What if I told you that the decision to keep Meghan out of the parade had been finalized months before? And what if that decision wasn't just about her, but about preserving an entire system of Hollywood power? Let's pull back the curtain. First, the parade organizers. On the surface, it looks like a community event. Floats, cheerleaders, candy, children waving signs. But at the top, it's a tightly controlled spectacle. Behind the scenes, there's a hierarchy of influence. The Hollywood Chamber of Commerce sets the rules. Sponsors dictate visibility and branding. Event producers control the narrative and television coverage. Celebrity management teams negotiate spots and appearances. Every participant is vetted. Every float placement is strategic. Every camera shot is pre-planned. And every grand marshal is chosen not just for fame, but for their ability to align with Hollywood's current image priorities. Luke Wilson's selection was not accidental. He represents credibility, warmth, and a neutrality that Hollywood trusts. He is beloved, approachable, uncontroversial. A perfect figurehead to keep the parade image wholesome. Now imagine Meghan Markle attempting to enter that environment. Unsanctioned, unpredictable, and with a history of turning attention toward herself. To the organizers, she isn't a celebrity attraction. She's a potential liability. She could draw controversy, shift camera focus, create news cycles that overshadow sponsors, trigger debates that distract from the parade's family-friendly brand. So, from the moment Meghan's interest in the parade became known, the organizers began devising strategies to keep her out of the spotlight. Not rude, not dramatic, just strategic. Neutrality in action. Second, the Hollywood insiders. Hollywood thrives on networks. Who you know, who trusts you, who validates you. These factors often outweigh talent. And in this network, Meghan had been quietly losing ground. While she has name recognition, her return attempts have met resistance. She isn't fully trusted by studio executives. Some top-tier celebrities are wary of her unpredictable PR trajectory. Her Netflix ventures and royal past are a double-edged sword, fascinating but risky. Hollywood gossip circles already classify her as volatile and attention-seeking. So when the parade came around, the decision to exclude her wasn't personal, it was calculated. Hollywood was signaling. Not now, not like this, not here. Third, the sponsors. From toy companies to beverage brands, sponsors invest heavily in the parade. They want safety. They want family. They want cheerful headlines, not political or celebrity drama. Meghan's potential involvement posed a risk. Could her appearance be interpreted as a publicity stunt? Could a controversial interaction with another celebrity dominate the news cycle? Could social media conversations spiral into debates that overshadow sponsor branding? Sponsors quietly lobbied behind the scenes. Keep it clean. No Meghan. The message trickled down to organizers. The message reached Luke Wilson, who was briefed. Do not engage. Fourth, the celebrity hierarchy. Hollywood has its own unspoken order. Some names are untouchable. Some names are influential. Some are trusted insiders, others peripherals. Meghan, despite fame, falls into a tricky category. Royal notoriety gives her attention, but not necessarily industry trust. Social media presence generates buzz, but not credibility. Hollywood values long-term reliability over sporadic spectacle. Luke Wilson, as a respected senior actor, embodies the insider perspective. He is trusted to recognize the hierarchy and respect boundaries. By ignoring Meghan publicly, he reinforced the message. She's not part of this circle. Not now. Not like this. Fifth, the PR implications. Hollywood has learned, the hard way, that celebrity narratives can hijack events. Meghan's team is known for being aggressive, persistent, and media-savvy. Left unchecked, they could have attempted to engineer interactions with Luke Wilson. slipped into camera frames without authorization, forced organizers into awkward on-air acknowledgement, created viral content that the parade didn't want. The preemptive strategy: prevent any opportunity for Meghan to claim a public moment. Control the optics. Avoid her entirely. Let neutrality speak louder than engagement. And neutral, in this case, translates to no acknowledgement from Luke Wilson. Because Hollywood knows that sometimes silence is the loudest message. Mini emotional beat. Imagine being Meghan Markle, fully prepared, fully styled, expecting a carefully curated moment, only to have every channel of influence shut down, every ally neutralized, every potential validation removed. You smile, you wave, you attempt to participate, and the world sees Luke Wilson not even look at you. Nothing. Silence. And that silence is louder than any insult. Hollywood doesn't need to shout. It whispers. It signals. It organizes. It excludes. And this night, Meghan learned how powerful quiet exclusion can be. Surprising twist. But it wasn't just about control. It was about precedent. The organizers feared that if Meghan was allowed a moment, it would set a precedent. Other celebrities might attempt unsanctioned appearances. Social media could manipulate narratives against event intent. Sponsors could lose confidence in the parade's brand management. Hollywood's unspoken order could be disrupted publicly. So the decision wasn't petty. It wasn't personal. It was structural. Meghan's exclusion was an enforcement of Hollywood norms, and she walked into it completely blind. Audience question. Ask yourself, if Hollywood has mechanisms to quietly enforce boundaries, what happens when someone refuses to respect them? What happens when a celebrity is used to being acknowledged automatically? And what happens when the most unassuming man on the float, Luke Wilson, decides he will uphold these boundaries with absolute precision? The answer is what we saw on the parade route. Silence. Complete, unbroken, and intentional. But that silence set off a chain reaction. Because Meghan didn't just want acknowledgement. She wanted validation. She wanted participation. She wanted legitimacy. And Hollywood refused. This wasn't the end of the story. It was the spark. The backstage whispers, the staff observations, the leaked communications, they were all waiting to explode. And by the time the parade reached its halfway point, the ripple effects of these hidden politics would become undeniable. Because Hollywood doesn't just operate in the open. It operates in networks, whispers, and unspoken signals. And on this night, every signal was pointing in one direction. Meghan Markle is not invited. Meghan Markle is not welcome. Meghan Markle is not part of the narrative. And yet she was standing there, fully visible, fully prepared, expecting something entirely different. But what came next, what other celebrities noticed, what the staff reported, what unfolded along the parade route, would deepen the humiliation. And it would reveal a larger truth about Hollywood's perception of Meghan Markle that even her PR machine could not spin. The real story, the one beyond politics and optics, begins in Chapter 5. The public sentiment, the reactions, the murmurs, and the eye rolls. Because while the organizers were making decisions in quiet rooms, the world outside was ready to judge. What if the moment you think is about reinvention, comeback, or celebration turns into a public spectacle of judgment? What if, despite your meticulous planning, the world decides your presence is inconvenient, embarrassing, or even irrelevant? That was the reality Meghan Markle faced at the 93rd annual Hollywood Christmas parade, and the aftermath was as brutal as Luke Wilson's silence on the float. Right after the organizers, sponsors, and Luke Wilson had made their quiet decisions, the public stepped in. And Hollywood, where image is everything, knows how quickly sentiment can spiral. What happens when public perception doesn't just notice a snub, it amplifies it? What if the world, armed with smartphones, social media, and endless commentary, turns silence into a viral spectacle? That's exactly what happened to Meghan Markle. It begins with social media. As the parade unfolded, video clips of Luke Wilson passing Meghan without acknowledgement spread faster than any float could travel down Hollywood Boulevard. Within minutes, TikTok users slowed down the footage to capture the micro-expressions. Instagram stories shared side-by-side comparisons with other celebrity greetings. Twitter erupted with threads dissecting every angle, every glance, every missed nod. Headlines weren't flattering. Luke Wilson snubs Meghan Markle in holiday parade spectacle. Grand Marshal ignores Meghan Markle. Is she out of Hollywood's favor? Meghan Markle erased in Hollywood Christmas Parade 2025. The framing was subtle but damning, not a critique of her style, talent, or cause, but of her relevance. Next, the audience reactions. Crowds along the parade route weren't just passive observers. They were live commentators. And their reactions, mixed with online amplification, shaped the narrative. Families noticed the subtle tension. Did he just not look at her? Fans murmured, "That's awkward." Gossip vloggers instantly began narrating the scene as a public feud. Commentators speculated. Was this personal? Political? Strategic? The public sentiment was clear. Meghan Markle's presence, while visually striking, felt disruptive to the harmony of the parade. Then there's the psychology of expectation. The public loves a comeback story. Hollywood thrives on reinvention. But when someone attempts a comeback and fails, especially visibly, it creates a heightened sense of judgment. Meghan's team expected sympathy, excitement, and admiration. Instead, the online crowd delivered scrutiny, mockery, and mild derision. Consider this. A woman walks into a parade expecting acknowledgement from the Grand Marshal, fully prepared, fully stylized, fully calculated. When that acknowledgement never comes, the audience fills in the blanks. And humans are naturally judgmental. They often assume motives, intentions, and failures faster than they assume success. The memes started almost immediately. Slow-motion frames of Luke Wilson gliding past. Zoom-ins on Meghan's fleeting expressions. Side-by-side GIFs comparing her posture with other parade participants. Captions like, "The moment Hollywood said no. Luke Wilson doesn't have time for your drama, Meghan." The virality wasn't malicious in a traditional sense. It was ironic, entertaining, and shared for amusement. But the effect was the same. It reinforced the narrative of Meghan being out of sync with Hollywood. The irony? Meghan thrives on attention. She's mastered media cycles, public opinion shifts, and controlled narrative. She's a skilled storyteller. But this time, she wasn't controlling anything. Silence, observation, commentary from every corner. And suddenly, her carefully curated image began to unravel, not because of scandal, but because of perception. Hollywood insiders confirm that public sentiment plays a significant role in career trajectories. One executive said, "You can't fake relevance. People will tell you, loud and clear, and social media amplifies it." For Meghan, this moment became a textbook example. Audience question. Have you ever noticed how the internet can take a single second and turn it into a defining narrative? How one glance, or the lack of it, can overshadow months of preparation? That's exactly what happened here. And it's worth asking, how does one recover from a public perception this entrenched? Adding to the drama, contradictory reactions. Some fans defended her. She was lovely, standing there so composed. Hollywood needs to acknowledge her presence. Others criticized. Why even show up if you weren't invited? She's forcing herself into events now. And then the commentary from celebrity gossip channels. Luke Wilson didn't acknowledge her, classic Hollywood signal. Meghan Markle's relevance is slipping, and this parade proves it. The contradictions compounded the narrative. Meghan could be praised and mocked simultaneously. But the overwhelming sentiment leaned toward disapproval, or at least detachment. Emotional beat. Imagine the psychological toll. You prepare, rehearse, dress, and style yourself for a major public event. You arrive fully confident, expecting acknowledgement, expecting legitimacy, expecting affirmation. Then, the Grand Marshal ignores you. The public whispers and speculates. Social media clips frame your moment as humiliation. Your PR team scrambles. The emotional spike is immediate. Embarrassment, shock, frustration, and perhaps even a flicker of panic. It's one thing to experience a snub in private. It's another to have the world witness it in real time, amplifying every micro-expression and perceived reaction. The deeper insight. Public sentiment doesn't just reflect reality, it creates reality. When enough people observe, comment, and share, the narrative becomes truth, regardless of the nuances behind the scenes. And for Meghan Markle, Hollywood and the online audience had collectively decided this wasn't her moment. Her brand, carefully constructed over years, was now vulnerable. The world watching could see gaps in her strategy, cracks in her composure, and flaws in her execution. The stakes are higher than a parade float. Hollywood is a delicate ecosystem. Public perception determines bookings, collaborations, partnerships, sponsorships, and invitations. A single viral moment can have ripple effects that last months, even years. And here's the kicker. Meghan's team realized this in real time. They were already tracking social media metrics, hashtag performance, and news cycles, realizing that the narrative was spiraling away from their control. At this point, the humiliation was no longer theoretical. It had consequences. Invitations to future events might be rescinded. Celebrity allies might distance themselves. Brands might hesitate to align with her. The public perception of her relevance might erode further. Audience question. Have you ever walked into a room expecting recognition and received nothing? How did it feel? Now multiply that by tens of thousands of people, add millions of online viewers, and amplify it through the relentless lens of Hollywood gossip. That's the scale Meghan faced. And yet, here's the contradiction that defines the moment. Meghan remained physically composed. Her PR team stood close, whispering reassurances. Her smile stayed in place. Cameras saw elegance and grace. But underneath, the stakes were exploding. Every social media reaction, every crowd whisper, every celebrity glance amplified the reality. She had miscalculated. Hollywood and the public had decided she was not part of the moment. And her carefully constructed appearance, the image, the positioning, the anticipation, was being weaponized against her. And while public sentiment seethed online, Meghan's team was not idle. Behind the barricades, backstage, and in private communications, attempts to salvage the situation were already underway. Emails, texts, and phone calls began flying. Some leaked, some intercepted, all fraught with tension. And one particular leak would reveal the true intentions Meghan had for the parade, and the real reason the situation spiraled the way it did. What do you do when a meticulously planned public appearance goes off the rails in front of tens of thousands, and millions more online are watching every micro-expression, every gesture, every missed acknowledgement? For most people, you'd apologize quietly, regroup, or simply walk away. But for Meghan Markle, the stakes are higher, the cameras are closer, and the PR machinery is always running. By the time the parade had reached its midpoint, her team was already in overdrive. Mini hook. What happens when a PR machine designed for spinning headlines encounters a scenario where there's literally nothing to spin? What do you do when the event itself refuses to give you a narrative? That was Meghan Markle's nightmare in real time. It begins with the scramble. Backstage, a small army of PR professionals, stylists, and personal assistants were tracking every second. Social media was exploding. The clips of Luke Wilson ignoring Meghan went viral in minutes. Gossip channels were reporting commentary in real time. Influencers were creating breakdown videos analyzing body language and facial expressions. And the narrative was clear. Meghan had been publicly ignored, unacknowledged, and erased. Meghan's team realized almost immediately that they couldn't let the moment stand. No matter how composed she appeared on camera, the perception of rejection was spreading like wildfire. Step 1. Framing the narrative. PR strategy in crisis mode is about framing. What can be said? What can be implied? What can be edited, deleted, or redirected? Her team quickly drafted talking points. Emphasize holiday spirit, family, and community engagement. Highlight her effort to be present for the fans and children. Frame any interactions as warm and spontaneous. Avoid mentioning Luke Wilson entirely. It was a delicate balancing act. Too defensive, and the narrative shifts toward fragility. Too aggressive, and it becomes entitlement. Too late, and the social media tide cannot be reversed. Step 2. Digital intervention. Her PR team immediately deployed online measures, promoting positive imagery of Meghan smiling with fans, highlighting interactions with children and volunteers, uploading pre-edited videos emphasizing her engagement with the parade rather than with the Grand Marshal, contacting online influencers and journalists to pivot stories toward Meghan spreads holiday cheer, instead of Meghan snubbed by Luke Wilson. Despite all efforts, the initial viral clips were already gaining traction. As any crisis management professional knows, the first narrative to hit the public often sticks. Trying to overwrite it is a high-risk, high-stakes endeavor. Step 3. Controlling the narrative in real life. Meanwhile, her team attempted to create new camera moments along the route. Strategic positioning near a popular float. Engaging with fans holding cameras and phones. Catching the attention of photographers outside the pre-planned media pool. They were effectively attempting to create a distraction, a new focal point. Anything to pull the narrative away from Luke Wilson's refusal. But it was a fragile plan. Every moment had to appear spontaneous. Every smile, every gesture, every glance needed to feel organic. Audiences are ruthless at detecting calculated performances. Step 4. Back-channel outreach. Her team also attempted a more subtle, behind-the-scenes approach, reaching out to parade organizers to request access or acknowledgement, contacting celebrity intermediaries who might influence Luke's attention, sending last-minute text messages to journalists and photo editors suggesting alternative storylines. All of these efforts had one goal: salvage the evening. But the result? Limited success. The organizers had already signaled clearly that Meghan's presence would be peripheral at best. Luke Wilson's boundary setting was firm. And in the world of live events, real-time adjustments can only do so much. Step 5. Emotional tactics. For Meghan herself, the PR scramble was emotionally taxing. Every passing second without acknowledgement increased the perceived humiliation. Every viral clip sent a spike of panic through her team. The disconnect between expectations and reality created internal tension, frustration, embarrassment, urgency. Sources say that in private moments, Meghan's composure began to crack in subtle ways. Small gestures, fleeting expressions, micro-movements that revealed she was processing the unexpected snub. Even her team, experts in narrative management, noticed the subtle but undeniable impact. Step 6. Preemptive media leaks. One of the most aggressive tactics employed involved leaking selective information to journalists. Anonymous briefings emphasizing her dedication to the parade, her philanthropic focus, her commitment to holiday cheer. Carefully curated off-the-record insights that painted her in a positive, hard-working light. Strategic use of ambiguity, hinting that interactions with other celebrities went well without specifying details. The goal was to create a counter-narrative that could trend simultaneously with the viral snub clips, providing a balance in the public perception. Step 7. Managing allies. Meghan's team also reached out to Hollywood allies to provide soft support. A-list friends were asked to comment on social media or post images that reinforced her presence and goodwill. Industry colleagues were encouraged to provide interviews framing her appearance as positive and engaged. Brand partners were looped in to emphasize her alignment with family-friendly messaging, hoping to divert media attention from the snub. Even with these efforts, the undercurrent of public sentiment and social media momentum remained challenging. As we saw in Chapter 5, the initial narrative had been set. Meghan had been ignored. Step 8. The internal assessment. Backstage, Meghan's team conducted rapid assessments. Which outlets were highlighting the snub? Which social media platforms were generating the most traction? Were influencers amplifying the intended holiday spirit messaging? Could the negative narrative be contained before the evening ended? Every second counted. Timing was everything. Delay could cement the narrative. Early intervention was crucial, but even the fastest PR efforts were fighting against real-time viral momentum. Emotional beats. Imagine the psychological pressure. The public is watching. Your PR team is shouting through whispers, texts, and hand signals. Every movement is analyzed. Every expression, every body language cue is scrutinized. And the one person whose acknowledgement you hoped for, Luke Wilson, is already hundreds of feet down the parade route, unbothered, neutral, and completely untouchable. For a figure who relies on calculated visibility, this was chaos incarnate. Step 9. The desperate measures. Reports from insiders reveal that in the middle of the parade, Meghan's team attempted one last-ditch effort: rapid repositioning along the route, encouraging interaction with children holding cameras, engaging photographers not included in the official media plan, attempting to create impromptu content that could overshadow the snub. Every move was carefully orchestrated, but Hollywood is a place where optics matter more than effort. Despite the team's meticulous efforts, the narrative of exclusion per. Audience question: have you ever tried to control a narrative that is already spiraling beyond your control? Imagine millions of viewers, live reactions, instant social media amplification, and all your preparation is being undermined.